Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this live stream today here at the DRMSH channel. This is Dr. Michael S. Heiser official YouTube channel. My name is Jorge Gil. Many of you already know me. I do full-time ministry for crossexamine.org, and I also own a social media agency called Worldview Media. And I've been working with Dr. Mike Heiser since 2020. I met him, I think, in the 2018 through some interviews that we did over at Cross Examined. And then we became really, really good friends. And he was actually just a blessing in my life as a mentor. Work with him every day. I thoroughly miss him. He's been gone for 2 years now. He's been going to be in the presence of the Lord. Moved to the unseen realm. It's hard not to say that and not get choked up, because I know we all miss him so much. But today we bring great news. We bring some amazing news. But before I bring the special guest, I want to ask everybody to go ahead on and let me know where you're watching from. I'm reading all your comments. I want to make sure that Drenna and the team of the Michael Heiser Foundation know where you guys are watching from. And before I introduce the special guest, also want to let you know that we have this incredible treat, and we're doing some amazing things here at the foundation to help you guys continue your journey of learning and education through Dr. Heiser's materials, and furthering also the content that we put here on this channel. So please let me know where you're watching from. If you feel that this stream is blessing you, make sure that you leave a like. That helps us get to more people. Also, make sure that you share it. If you're watching Facebook, you can share it. Middle of everywhere in North Carolina. I used to live there. It was a town called Newton Grove, in between Clinton and Raleigh, North Carolina. It was a very, very small town. If you blink, you'll miss it if you're driving by. But let's see, in Amelia Island, California, Maryland, West Virginia. Well, thank you all for showing up. Also, let us know, or let me know, when was the first time that you heard Dr. Heiser's teaching. And I know, because that was an impact event for me, so I definitely remember that. And let me know how Dr. Heiser's work has impacted your life. My life has been completely changed at looking at the scriptures the way that Mike taught me, and pretty sure taught you all. But right now, I want to make sure that you guys go ahead on and let me know where you're watching from. Where was the first time that you hear Dr. Heiser, and how does it impacted your life? And also, let me know if you can share this stream. If you can share it on Facebook, great. If you can grab this link and share it your contact list, go ahead on and do that, because we really, really, really want to make sure that this news that I bring today is going to get far and wide. Well, without further ado, I want to go ahead on and first introduce one of my two guests, and his name is Mike. Okay, Mike is the executive director of Eagle's Nest Ministries International. ENMI reaches into Israel, sharing the gospel in various ways, serving in over 30 years of full-time ministry, and he is a graduate of the Awakening School of Theology. I know many of you have gone through the Awakening School of Theology as well, where the Divine Council Worldview and Understanding changed his life several years ago. Mike has been married for almost 35 years, has 3 children and 3 grandchildren. And my other guest is none other than Dr. Ronn Johnson, the host of the Divine Council Worldview. So right now, I want to give a round of applause to both of them, and here they are. Okay, I want to make sure that you guys go ahead and share this stream, let everybody know what we're doing here. And I do want to start with our special guest. You guys listen, I'm pretty sure if you are on the other side of the screen, you're listening to Mike Chu and Dr. Ronn Johnson every single week like I do. So I'm actually going to give the mic to Mike. So Mike can tell us a little bit about your superhero origin story, what you do with Eagle Nest Ministries International, and why are we doing this live stream, okay?
Wonderful. Thank you, Jorge. This is a pleasure. And it's incredible to be a part of your team. And so what we do in Israel is very unique. We have a foundation that works in Israel, and I've been ministering in Israel for many, many years through various ways, helping with government policy in the U.S., with also reaching with the gospel and in worship as well. But what we do, especially with Holocaust survivors, is kind of our mainstream. Is we partner with teams that are on the ground, Jewish believers that actually go out and share the gospel, build relationships with the 150,000 plus survivors that are left in Israel, and they build those relationships through humanitarian efforts. And as a result, a lot of these survivors are coming to faith in Messiah Yeshua as a result of the just the genuine heart and sincerity of the gospel and the love that's being shared through Yeshua to them. And it's a remarkable. There's some remarkable testimonies in that. As also we've partnered with the IDF. We were able to share the love of Yeshua through right after the war began. And I was there just a week and a half leading a tour right before the war began on October 7th, 2023, and actually experienced a stabbing right outside of our hotel as we were pulling up to bring our team into the hotel. And then the war started, and we partnered the next day with the IDF, and we sent tactical material and equipment to 500 IDF soldiers with a card that shared the gospel in Hebrew and in English, along with a patch that showed solidarity as believers in Yeshua, the only begotten Son, with also out of Exodus 8:22, where God calls Israel His firstborn son. So we tied that into being a part of one family under the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And so we work with we actually are working with an Arab pastor that serves the Jewish community as well, and with a lot of humanitarian efforts, bringing also packets for children of the trauma of the war to help them. And so we've done it's just been a wonderful, humbled to be able to be a part of that. And so the first time I heard Mike was on the radio years ago on an old late night syndicated radio broadcast called Coast to Coast, and and it was very esoteric, and so I knew of Mike, and I would see him periodically. But then, and when he came to Jacksonville in 2018, got to hear him all day teach about the Psalm 82 and Unseen Realm and the Divine Council Worldview. It changed my life. I joined the Awakening School, and also, and subsequently got my master's, and now I'm in my PhD program. But that changed my life forever concerning the scriptures, and the scriptures came alive in another fashion. I'm sure so many people have that similar testimony. And so we are looking now, because of the war, we had to pivot from doing a tour in Israel this year, and we decided to focus in on Greece and the beginnings of the New Testament and Christianity, how it began to expand, especially in the footsteps and the travels of Rav Shaul, Paul the Apostle. And so we are offering a tour, and we had all of this in place. And through this process, we got to know Drenna, because we live in the same neighborhood, and my daughter went to work for her as her admin, and we started talking, and she said, we really want to partner with you on this Greece trip, on this Greece tour. And I said, well, that's a wonderful thing. Let's do this. And I realized that we were looking at a lot of different aspects logistically that we had to change. So we had to change the date, we had to change all of the logistical aspects, but we settled in on a package that's going to be tremendous. And it just started kind of gaining momentum, and Dr. Ronn joined us, and he's going to be talking about all the different aspects he's going to be bringing to the table, because we've gone now from just seeing this as a walking in the footsteps of Paul, more now into a Divine Council teaching tour, because it'll span a lot of different aspects. So we're going to see how Dr. Ronn Johnson brings that whole aspect. There's obviously going to be historians that are going to be a part of the tour guide aspect of this tour. I'm going to be sharing from the Hebrew heart of the Apostle Paul, and how he brought this element into the lives of the early believers. And so it's going to culminate with I think with developing some teachings, not just as we tour, but in the evening, as well as video. And I'll let Ron talk about how all that's going to kind of permeate through the entirety of this whole adventure. We're actually calling it, because it's starting to expand, and I'm very, very excited to partner with the Michael S. Heiser Foundation and the Divine Council Worldview to see this culminate together as I think this is really something that's not been done before that I know of.
Yeah.
And so to actually touch the places, we're going to see the ruins, we're going to see the actual places Paul spoke, and then hear exactly what he was talking about. Because if there was any one apostle, maybe besides John, that had a grip on the understanding of the spirit realm, it would be Paul. And I think that I think in honor of Mike's memory and what he has brought to the body of Christ at large in these last several years, especially, I think this is going to be a tremendous tribute to his message, his ministry, and what he has left us with to carry forth.
Praise the Lord, man. Thank you so much for that. So we have Ron, obviously the host of the Divine Council Worldview. You guys know him. And how do you fit in all of this? I know, Mike, you already mentioned a little bit about that. So, Ron, from your perspective, you being one of the guys that are going to be preparing lessons, you guys going to be walking in the footsteps of Paul. You guys going to be going to all these places where there were pagan, cultures. Yeah. They under idols, lands that were ruled and still are ruled by Elohims that are not Yahweh, and how they related to the message of the gospel. How are you going to be parsing out and breaking down all of that?
Ron? Yeah, and thank you, Jorge, and thank you, Mike, again for this great honor. In fact, it was about a month ago when we talked, and it was one of those moments when Mike asked me if I could come and join this great opportunity and be the Bible teacher. I prayed for 2 seconds, and then I said yes. And because I had said to the Lord, and I don't know if I told you this, Mike, but I had been to Israel numerous times, and then COVID broke out. In fact, I had a tour all set to go in 2020, and of course, COVID nixed that. Then the war broke out, and I even prayed to the Lord. I said, if you ever want me to go back, I'm kind of canning the whole concept, because it's just too much to plan and then have it pulled away, have pulled away. So I just said, Lord, I love Israel. I love to talk about you when I'm there, and the story of the Bible, walking the footsteps of Jesus in that place. And so when Mike called, it was, and we talked about this opportunity. That's why I jumped at it so fast, because I saw not only my own desires come to fruition, but I think God's plan for my continued development in that part of the world. In other words, teaching, especially Divine Council issues on that side of the pond. So I'm so excited to do it. And what Mike, in fact, has tasked me to do in our conversations is come up with 20 to 30 different topics, each 30 to 60 minutes long, that we can plug in almost any place where we are, because these kinds of tours, and I'm going to speak for you, Mike, so you'll have to pull me back off the cliff if I say too much, but this is a study tour, right? We're not going to look at relics and go through gift shops. We might hit a few, but that's not why we're going. We're going to turn our Bibles from black and white to color, and to stand on the actual airspace of places that made the difference, not only to the biblical story, but to the course of history. And can't wait to be there and talk about those things. So I have, 20, 30, I've already laid them out in my head, whether it be life as a church-going member in Corinth. What was it like to go to a villa and be a Christ follower in Corinth? We'll talk about that. What is an idol? How do idols play into conversion stories in Thessalonica and Philippi and so forth? What is a principality and power? All right. Ephesians 6:12. This is the real enemy, Paul said to that church in Ephesus. So we'll be on the ground right there talking about
all right.
Ron,
I want to stop you. And I want to go ahead on it because I'm already excited. I'm already counting my pennies because I'm going to have to sweet talk Mike here so he can give me, I don't know, the cameraman seat or something. But for real, man, for everybody on the other side, isn't it amazing that even though our beloved Dr. Heiser is gone away from us temporarily, right? But God has raised a team to continue, of amazing people to continue to do this. And again, there was a time in the past where we dream of doing things like this with Mike, and the Lord had different plans. But now we have somebody like Ron, who literally, you spoke for 2 minutes, Ron, and I'm already ready to pack my bags and go. What an amazing opportunity this is for us to be able to walk where Paul walked. Lord willing, we will be able to walk where Jesus walked one day and do something similar, because we're praying for peace in Israel, right? But to be able to do this and to have a study where the actual events happen, Mars Hill, Ephesus, I mean, you're talking about the places where the Apostle Paul did his own teachings and impacted the world. So I just wanted to say that. Take it back, Ron.
Yeah, if I could jump in here, just to kind of put some logistics around what Dr. Ron was talking about, and I'll briefly go through some of the sites, or I shouldn't say sites, the locations we'll be at. But we were as Ron and I were talking, we actually talked just earlier this afternoon, and I said, this is really an Acts 16 to 22 window. It's a myriad of supernatural geography and events that are happening through the scriptures right there. I mean, so many different various things. It's just a plethora. We're seeing demons cast out. We're seeing the dead raised. We're seeing Bereans come to life in the scriptures. We're seeing all these different aspects, and how much you can just read right in between each line and see the spiritual emphasis from the spirit of darkness, as well as how Paul is bringing the spirit of life and light into the situation. It's an incredible canvas of what's going on there, and it covers so much literal geography of what we're going to be covering. So just to kind of give you just a quick synopsis of where we're landing. And if you're tuned in here and you want to go to enmi.life, and click on the events tab, everything about the tour will be right there. In fact, we just have to add a few more details just about hotels and things, but everything about the itinerary, the cost. We have a travel insurance partner that's joined with us, so all kinds of different things there. But and just so you know, folks, this is a 5-star tour. We're we're not skimping on anything. And the first half of the tour is on a celestial cruise line ship. So we'll be in porting every day, sometimes 2 times a day, into different locations. It's the only way, just so you understand, and I stress this with our tour folks, I said, I'm not doing a Greece tour if I'm not going to Ephesus. I know it's in Turkey, but I'm not going to do a biblical tour of the New Testament unless we're actually going to touch Ephesus. There's really no point to it. That's kind of like, I mean, you've got Apollos, Paul, Timothy, the whole situation there. And the great thing about this is that we can get into Ephesus through a port without passport control, instead of flying in and having to go through all these things in Turkey. So it's safe. It's a great way to see it without having to to juggle, say 120 people through customs and passport checks and all that. Wow. So it's just a fantastic way. So anyway, so some of what we're doing here looks like this. We're landing in Athens. We're going to cover the whole Athenian culture, everything. You mentioned Mars Hill as well. And then we're going to be cruising for 4 nights to Mykonos, Patmos. So even though that's not Paul, we are going to be touching on Patmos, where John received revelation, Rhodes, Crete, and there will be a one off day. You get one free day in Santorini for fun. That's your recreation
the day off. That's the day off.
Day off. Yeah. And then Ephesus. So we've got 4 nights on a cruise line, and there's 2 prices on there, and they're $100 apart. Now, basically what that means is that if you want an exterior room with a window, it's about $100 more. We only have a limited number of rooms that we can get on the exterior. So it's kind of like a first come, first serve. Whoever books early gets the exterior rooms. And this is all double occupancy pricing. So, and so then from there, we're into Corinth. We're back at, we're back in Athens at the Parthenon, Mars Hill. We talked about that. Now, one area that we haven't mentioned, it's not so much in scripture, it's Meteora and Kalambaka, which is where the monasteries and a lot of ancient 12th, 13th, 14th century artifacts, as far as scrolls and a lot of history behind how Greece, kind of came out of the Roman Empire and into where they are today. So we're into Thessaloniki, Philippi. We're into all these different cities, and so you're going to be drinking from a fire hose in the very literal sense, biblically, in teaching, and fortunately, you're going to get a nice room in a nice bed to sleep at night, and you're going to have a window because we'll be up again. Now, the boat will be a little bit more flexible than when you're on the tour bus for the second half of the tour, but it's going to be just a wonderful, wonderful experience.
All right, Ron. So Mike just gave us a kind of like a breakdown of where we're going to be at Athens. Do you have a breakdown of what you're going to be teaching? I think you were giving us a little bit of an unpacking on how you're going to approach these. So I'm really, really curious on how you will take this from a DCW perspective.
Yeah, since you mentioned Athens, we're clearly going to unpack Acts 17. We're going to read the text right there and unpack that idea of an unknown God and what that idol would have meant to the original hearers. Listen to Paul again talk through what my Bible college teacher thought was a mistake of a means of giving the gospel. And I remember when he said that, he felt bad, but I've often thought, did Paul give the gospel in Acts 17? And I would say absolutely. What he did was he just took those people from where they were when it came to the worship of a deity and moved them to the deity who is now in charge of the entire world. Imagine that conversation taking place right there. So that'll be Athens, Acts 17, of course. In Corinth, I can't wait to be there too, and talk about. Again, we'll have a lot of topics that we can dip in and out of, but when I talk at Corinth, I want to, again, feel what it's like to be part of a villa a house church. What was it like to go into these homes and to probably on a Friday night and to worship Jesus and have the Lord's Supper, right? So instead of doing a Passover meal or a Roman dinner party, they were having a dinner party in the honor of Jesus, Lord Jesus. And so that's how that Lord's Supper concept came about. We'll talk all the way through that. Paul's warning of idols and idol worship, how very real it would have been to walk down a city street on the way to your villa to worship Jesus and to see these household idols all along the street, tempting you away from worship in Jesus and those kind of things. So we want to make it very, very real and feel as though, as the word travel comes from the root word travail, right? The idea of being in a place and drinking its tea and sleeping in its beds enough that you miss home, but when you go home, you're a changed individual. So I want, what other cities? When we're in Thessalonica, I want to talk about the resurrection and eschatology. And that's, again, one of those books where at the end of every chapter in the Thessalonian letter, that Paul writes, he refers to the return of Jesus. So that was a very real concept to him. Very important that Jesus would return. Of course, in Ephesus, we can't miss the Ephesians 6:12 principalities and powers concept, and what Paul thought was the real enemy of the church. That is those beings that are still, and somehow, even though Jesus is Lord, these beings still have a long tether when it comes to their power. And so we'll talk through that. So it's going to be, as Mike said, a fire hose of Divine Council information. This will be, as I think you both said, I've never been a part of a tour that is completely given to a Divine Council worldview of teaching the Bible. I've been doing it, over in Israel here and there, but never given an entire tour to this. So this will be my thrill, because, Mike was all about the Old Testament Elohim and such. My dissertation was Paul's principalities. And so that was my joy, was to move that material into the New Testament, which is really what we're going to be studying here as we move from city to city in Paul's life. So then I have a lot of side topics to deal with whenever, we have evenings to review or to do perspective thoughts about the next day, even on the bus, right? Well, Mike will have time for Q&A. We will be giving you a very thick study guide that will be working through all this material too, so you don't have to be writing everything down as we talk. It'll be something you can treasure for many years to come, I hope. We will be videoing, right, Jorge? That's the plan. And turning a lot of this material into bite-sized pieces for YouTube and things like that as well. So
hopefully we will be able to create also a digital resource, right? A course with everything, syllabus, the appropriate materials, the handouts, and everything. So people that people that couldn't go in person can also be edified and be built through the teaching. But there is nothing better like the real deal, right? There's nothing better than being there, that experiencing the whole thing. Then you can go back. I remember the first time I went to Israel, and I was able to go with Frank and the Eli Shukran, archaeologists down there. They did a lot of digging in the city of David. His is well-known, funny guy, definitely personality in that Jerusalem and in that area. And it just completely changes the way that you look at the scriptures. I know it's cliche to say that. And now to be able to have this opportunity, they go with you, Ron, but also Michael, you are also doing teaching there, right? And there are other people that are going to be contributing to the teaching. So give us a little bit about, touch on that aspect, and we will be happy to take questions from the audience.
I'll even lead with that. I'll lead with that and say, look, if you're online and you have a question, it could be about a logistical aspect on the tour, or a question of maybe a subject matter we haven't mentioned yet. Feel free to just chat that into the Jorge there, and we'll see if we can address that. But So, I come from a very more of a messianic in Hebraic understanding and background in Scripture for many, many years, and so the idea, we have to understand that Paul was a Pharisee, which means he was a very learned rabbi. In fact, a protege of Gamaliel, of one of the most recognized rabbis of all time. So he brings this element of being Rav Shaul, whose purchased Roman name was Paul, who was able to traverse many nations because of that. I think I mentioned to Ron one time, says, if I was the CEO of heaven and I had Peter and Paul, and who I was going to send to the Jewish community, who I was going to send to the Gentile community, it would have been 180 degrees opposite in my thinking, right? And just my human thinking. That wasn't God's thinking. He sent a rabbi to the Gentiles, and he sent the fishermen to the Jewish community. So isn't that interesting? It's an interesting concept. But we see something exemplified in the life of Paul in Acts chapter 21 when he's dealing with the Jerusalem Council once again, as they come together, and they're questioning him about the teachings of Moses and making sure that the Gentiles understand the Scriptures. And I think that this is a foundational aspect that we see even in the church today. It concerns me. You're Dr. Frank Turek, and he talks about this all the time. But we're in the most biblically illiterate generation of all time in this nation. I mean, I think that Barna's new data talks about maybe 4% of proclaimed Christians read their Bibles daily.
Have a biblical worldview. I think is about like 3% of a biblical. People having a biblical worldview, and it is scary. Yeah.
So to bring not just a biblical worldview, but to bring an understanding of the rootedness of the Scriptures, plus the spiritual, the Elohim, that Psalm 82 basic concept, to the land from which it was like Paul was sent right into the lion's den, so to speak, to go at these spirits in a very real fashion, in a very real way. And we're seeing the result of the sending of the shaliach, or the apostle, being sent into the place where there was complete darkness to deal with on so many levels, from the intellectual and the philosophical all the way down to the very, just the simple family, how to deal with these actual manifestations and the residual aspect of these spirit beings and entities in regular life, in the culture of the Hellenistic culture, which mixed with the Roman culture and became this syncretic kind of thing. And so we're dealing with a lot of different elements and layers there. So this is going to be an incredible. So my heart is to see, hey, here's the foundation of Paul. Here's what he came from. We know the story of Stephen, seeing him as he was being carried up into heaven, and how when he was losing his life here on earth, and we see that he became a changed, absolutely transformed individual that turned from persecuting the believer to being one who gave, at the end of his ministry, says, I am the least of all. And so I think that there's a life lesson in that for us as believers, in the culture that we're in today, even here in the United States, that we're almost very similar as to who Paul was in that culture. And it's great to see that we're seeing on college campuses some of this, these revivals, but there has to be truth along with the transformation, because it's so easy to be that seed that gets into the thorns, or the seed that withers up and die in the scorched sun. So we need to make sure that we're teaching solid doctrine and truth, and so we can absorb this and be light into dark places where there's so much error and so much deception.
That's pretty amazing that we, even though, have the most amount of tools. I mean, I was just talking to my buddy Scott Lindsay. Scott is not a stranger to the channel. Actually, he's worked with Mike for, I think, 13 years over up in Logos. And me and him were talking earlier about the new feature the Logos just unveiled today, I get the dips on what's to come down the pipeline for them, and it's amazing the kind of resources that we have. Even if we don't have logos, there is an amazing way to now do Bible study, and people just want to have in front of them whatever, they have itching ears, whatever is going to distract them from the truth. So it's so important to do this kind of thing and to be able to, now a thought just came to my mind. You mentioned something about Barna, right? So we use those surveys and we kind of paying attention to the state of the culture. And one of the things that I thought about just now is this: if only a 4% of those who claim to be Christians have a biblical worldview, out of that 4%, how many of them have a DCW, perspective? It's like
Exactly.
we really like the 1% of the 1% of the 1%, right? And in my estimation, right, that's why I do what I do. And I'm heading to Costa Rica in a few hours, and then I'm heading to Nicaragua the day after to do some speaking and some teaching. One of the big things that they have asked me to do is to speak on the DCW, to speak on the unseen realm, because they are opening up to this idea. They're like, hey, we always understood this to a certain degree, but now the pieces are falling into place. And I know many people on the other side of the screen kind of had the same thought. It's like, hey, I kind of knew this, but I didn't know what to call it. I didn't know how to put it together. Now I have these pieces to the puzzle. Now I have the box stop, and I can put all the pieces that I had in my hands where they go. I have a reference point, excuse me. And I think that it is a privilege and an honor to be able to teach this, but also a huge responsibility, because like I said, is my belief that this is the proper framework to actually interpret the scriptures and to see reality. I remember right now I have purple glasses. I use this to help me kind of mitigate a little bit of the blue light. They got extra blue light blocking capabilities, but everything looks kind of with the purple hue, right? And we tend to think that Christianity is almost like having blue glasses. I remember when I was doing my marital counseling, premarital counseling before I got married, you have this book where it says, man has blue glasses, women has pink glasses. I think it was, I don't know, Dr. Exrich. And I thought about that, and as a philosopher, I think I'd like, well, that is actually not the way that we should look at reality, right? Because you have a tint that is perspectivalism, right? That's what it's called. But when we look at the scriptures and reality through the framework of the DCW, it is not like we are putting on DCW color glasses. We're taking our glasses off and we're getting LASIK eye surgery, and now we're seeing 20/20, right? And that is very important. But imagine if only a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of those who proclaim Christianity have that ability to do that. I think it's a huge responsibility. That's why I love what you're doing, Ron, with the DCW podcast, and Michael with this particular tour. I think that this can really create awareness of not only what really happened there, but opening the door for future opportunities.
Absolutely. This is you're right. It's only a fraction, and I think what happens is when we see this, and when being in Israel, when you, for example, when you do know you're going to actual sites. For me, it was the whipping post. Okay, so the whipping post, it's one of those. We know that post was nearly perfectly set. That is this place where Jesus took the cat of nine tails, and you're looking at this little stone mound, and you're going, this was for, and we take the scripture, say was, we were by his stripes we were healed, but that was for the nation of Israel. And so I'm thinking, he came because he says, I came first for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. But then he sent his disciples, the apostles, to the ends of the earth. And the scripture says they turned the world upside down.
Yes.
And so I think what this message, this understanding, it's not just a message, this understanding, this truth of understanding of the Divine Council Worldview is turning people's perspectives upside down. It's like getting the manual for something that you've owned and you never had the manual for it before. You knew how to work some things, but then you get the manual. It's like, oh, I didn't know it did this. I didn't know it did this. I didn't know it did this. And now when you see it this way, it's like you fully understand. For me, it's like scratching the iceberg, because I don't think any of us have touched the realities, some of them that actually exist in this understanding. I think we're all learning. I mean, and the best teacher is the best student, correct? I mean, we never stop learning. And so this tour puts us logistically, geographically in the places where these things happen. And you know, from being in Israel, when you're in a place that something happened and you're now getting the truth of that, something transformative happens within your spirit, within your mind. I mean, there's just a catharsis that happens. And this is why we do these tours. This is not just to have a vacation. This is to literally immerse yourself in the Word of God, not just by hearing, which is where faith comes by, but by placing yourself in that location. So while you're hearing that word, that teaching from Ron or from whomever, you're hearing that word, you're looking at where Paul stood in the Areopagus, and you're looking at where the ruins of Corinth, and you're hearing the story of what it's like to go to a small home group, church inside Corinth, and you're hearing these things and you're seeing. And it's like illumination for every one of us that comes on this trip, whether it's a personal revelation or something that takes place within oneself, or it takes place in just the scope of the reality of how Scripture is presented. You'll never read that Scripture again the same. It will be something different and have so much more meaning. I think Ron said something about it going from black and white font or black and white text to, vivid color on the canvas. And so I think that's what the experience is all about.
Awesome. Ron, you got any other comments, any other insights? I mean, we want to make sure that people get a full panorama of what you guys are offering with this tour and how this tied together with the content of the DCW and the projects that are to come. And for everybody who is on the other side, before I take you there, or I'll let you go there, Ron, we actually missed 2 or 3 live streams this month. I had a crazy month. I was pretty much out of my best game, and we could not just get it done. This is actually the one that survived for this month, but in the upcoming weeks, we're going to announce some more live streams, and you guys do not want to miss it. We have some amazing updates as well with a lot of the legacy projects. But this one right here is one of my favorites, because this is, again, it's cliche, but the Bible truly comes to life when you're walking in these places. So, Ron, give me a little bit of your take of what this trip means to you. What are you expecting to get, and why people should be excited about it?
Yeah, well, as we said, this will be the first time that I've ever been on a tour where DCW is front and center, the way this is going to be. So thank you, Mike, for having the foresight to do that and to put this together. I was going to say, and I hope I'm not overstepping our bounds, but I think we talked about this, the idea of having Q&A on the tour, even before we go, as we
let me jump in there real quick.
Let's do that,
because what's going to happen is there's going to be a special email just for Q&A. So we're not having to necessarily interrupt teaching, but people can email on the spot. There's Wi-Fi on the bus. There's Wi-Fi on the ships. So people can email any questions in, and we will get those, process those, make sure any duplicates go into one question, and we'll be able to daily address those things.
That's great. And again, I've been part of enough of these tours that you don't want to feel as though you're just a number or you're just being herded, from place to place. And so having that ability to be interactive with the teaching, that's a big thing. And I want to be a part of that. The evening, the idea, and again, Mike and I talked about this off the air as we've prepared here, that one of the goals is to each evening as well is to have a review time. And that's often a very meaningful time because you, again, have this fire hose of information coming throughout the day. And then to meet after supper and talk as a group about what we saw and how, just kind of review where we were. And then also do some prospective thoughts about the next day. Tomorrow, we're going to be XYZ. So that's all going to be part of the tour as well. That's so helpful. Again, I've been part of, or I've seen tours from the distance, they just parade them around and don't give them much time to think.
We don't do that.
That's not going to be it. So it will be emphasis on the word study tour, right? It'll be a study tour. And how much walking, by the way? Someone asked me the other day, how many miles can they plan on having to walk?
It's a little bit, I would put it in the moderate to a little bit above moderate. As you know, when you're in Israel, the city of David can get a lot of steps. You can get a lot of steps down and up. And so some of the sites do have some steps and things of that nature. So I'm still working on those specific details and specific sites, and I'll have that as well as the hotel information and things of that nature. And we'll post those on the site as well. So you'll kind of have an idea, but most of it is not going to be too bad. So I would say I would give it a nice solid moderate at this point.
Okay. I got a quick question here from Cody Brassfield. He asks, what are the accommodations for single travelers?
Okay. So there is a premium, and that's on the website. I can't remember the amount. I want to say it's about $1,400 or $1,500 or something like that. So you can do that. The issue is obviously you're in a cabin on a ship for 4 nights, 5 days by yourself, as well as hotel accommodations. So that's why it does. It may be less than that. I don't know the number right off. Let me see if I can find that. Let's see, it's.
All right. So while you're,
but it's there. There is a premium on that though.
The next one is, and Cody's asking more questions, so I'm going to try to get them all. And then I have a few other here that not related to the tour, but it's still important to answer. He says, how about a trip outline and teaching would be cool. And I think that you guys are working on that right now. Right.
What are we talking, what, 35 pages? Did you say, Ron? Is that what?
It'll be more than that. It'll be
about 60 pages.
60, 70 pages. Yeah, maybe more. Yeah.
And what is the max tour size? Cody asked.
Yeah, so we're cut off at about 120. So we're going to have 3 buses and enough for 120 on the cabins on the ship. So.
All right. Now I have a question here from Roy, and it's not related to the tour, but I think it's important. He says, any way to get the Dr. Michael Heiser videos on angels on DVD or Blu-ray? And actually that would be something that you will email Logos, right? Because those are published through Faith Life. I know that they changed their name back to just Logos. But you email them and they will be able to ask you to see if they have copies of that. I know that they had switched their complete platform MO to digital only, which for someone like me, I'm elated. But I know a lot of people like to hold it and have it and pop it in. I don't know. I haven't owned a DVD in I don't know, maybe 15 years. But for people who want to have a DVD or a Blu-ray, use it, then it is a question for Faith Life or for Logos. So maybe you can email them and find out. I don't know if anybody else has questions. I don't know if you guys have more to say about it. I know that you guys can go to enmi.life. That's the website where you guys can get all the information. Or you also can email. I think the email is info@holocaustsurvivalhelp.com. That's correct, right?
info@holocaustsurvivorhelp.com. Yes.
Yeah, info@holocaustsurvivorhelp.com. Yeah, and anybody that take advantage of the next few minutes, you can ask questions to Mike, to Dr. Ron, and about the tour or about anything else. We want to make sure that you guys have the opportunity to interact with us as well. And also, again, let's pray that this experience becomes something that we do once or twice a year. I know how incredibly difficult it is to organize something like this logistically. Me being a person that I break out in a rash every time I have to move, I cannot imagine, Mike, how incredibly difficult it is to organize something like this and to have the boldness to do it and to be engaged in what you do. It's definitely.
So we'll have, for every tour participant, there will be a minimum of 4 Zoom calls just amongst the tourists, those who are on the trip, leading up to the tour, so that every question is answered. Good. Every possible scenario that could be thought of, because there's going to be scenarios we haven't thought of yet. I know our tour company has. Our tour company, just so you understand, our tour company's been in the business of Israel tours longer than anybody in Israel. In fact, the person that originated this started doing tours shortly after, in the 1950s, after Israel became a nation. And now they have a partner they've had a partner now in Greece for many years. And so it's the same tour company using their partnership in Greece. So they're very, very experienced. They do a tremendous job. The testimonies from our Israel tours are just stellar, and the people are just amazed as to how well they were taken care of by this group. So I'm very, very pleased with them. They're strong believers. They're going to be drinking from the fire hose from Ron, more than probably a lot of us that already have touched into the Divine Council Worldview, which is great, because that means that the way they do tours will never be the same again.
That's correct. I mean, I think that's part of what we want to do, is transform. I mean, no pun intended, the landscape of the touring industry when it comes to focusing on the DCW, right? We've done that with podcasts. We've done that with books, Bible studies. We've done that with the content that we put here at the DRMSH platforms. The new Michael S. Heiser Foundation website. It is worth to mention, the amount of content that still lives at the Naked Bible podcast, podcast feed, and we're just continuing to do what we're doing. I believe I've given away over 10,000 copies of Supernatural in Spanish, probably, the same amount of the What Does God Want book. So, I mean, there is no stopping this. I remember Mike's dream of having a seminary in a thumb drive. Maybe with the new technology, you probably just can send it off to Starlink now and download the seminary, when Elon Musk chips us all, right? We could just I'm just joking. But what I'm saying is, now it more than ever, getting this information out there is becoming more and more accessible, while at the same time, I remember Mike talking about this, which was, that we're going to get canceled sooner or later as Christians. And that's why he wanted to have a standalone a seminary on a thumb drive. And I think we can make this happen. All these teachings are going to go into those resources. And as part of the Michael Heiser Foundation, everybody here on this stream is looking forward to honor Mike's wishes to get this material out there. And then again, he said he never had an original thought. He was just good at connecting the dots.
Exactly true. And getting back to that question on single occupancy, we do have it as an option that hasn't been priced. I haven't received the price on that. I did have it. What happened was we had it scheduled, and when Drenna approached me about partnering, we had to scrap that entire trip and move it to a different date. So my thoughts were crossing back into the old one. So I will get that information, and then I guess I can post it as a comment in the YouTube channel. Correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And
okay.
Just let me know. You can text me, and we get our team to pin it on the top, and that way people will be able to get access to that. So yeah, you guys can find more information at enmi.life. Ron?
So next steps, Mike, what would a person do if they want to go? What's practically the next steps for a person?
Yeah, great. Everything is at our events page at enmi.life. You can actually make your deposit. And so just so everyone knows that the best thing to do is go ahead and secure your travel insurance. A lot of travel credit cards offer that inherently if you have that card. AAA does it. We're partnering with Yonder. You don't have to go with them. That's just an option. We just like to provide that as a courtesy. And so we don't make any money with them. It's just there. They partner with us for this trip. So, but yeah, everything's on there that we can, and we're going to be continually updating more and more specific details, say about the accommodations, and I'll put a walking rating on there, and we'll talk about obviously the single occupancy as well. But there's a lot of information there. The itinerary is pretty specific, and just so you know, you are on a ship, and you do need your passport. And if your passport is going to expire within 6 months of the tour, you must have it renewed within 6 months. So just
the dates
of
the tour, by the way, have we even set the
November,
dates yet?
Yeah, November 9th, November 9th through the 19th of this year. Yeah. So you'll get home right before Thanksgiving. So
there you go.
Yep.
So you arrange your own flight into Athens on the 9th?
Yes. So because what we used to be able to do is make deposits on group travel. That no longer exists with the airlines. So everyone is on their own for getting to Athens, and we'll give you a time, like an 8-hour time zone, and then it's about a 20-minute drive to the hotel there. That first night, it's just a rest day. We get there, and then that dinner, and then Ron, you and I and the tour company will be doing an orientation that evening, and you can actually plan on doing a teaching if you'd like to on that evening. So that's kind of the orientation opening night, and the food is just stellar. So, and then from then we're moving, and that's just how it's going to be. There's going to be just a tremendous flow. And so we do have a few little stopgaps. We have to reach certain numbers to get that second bus and a certain number to get that third bus. It's as long as we can get those numbers, those thresholds hit, then we can get the extra bus. There's just a basic cost to use that next bus. So, this is all involved in this whole thing.
Right.
So what happens is that when we get the first bus full, we got about 20 seats we got to get into the second bus, and then we can move and shift, and then likewise. So we have capped it off at 3 buses. We feel like that beyond that, we'll get outside of, you mentioned this, Ron, outside the element of community, especially at night, meeting together, people getting to know each other, being able to, develop some relationships. And folks, you will develop relationships with folks you've never met before that live in different parts of the country, and probably become longtime friends with them. That's what tends to happen on these tours. So, and we're not a cattle car tour event like you were talking about. We don't just, show up you got 10 minutes to look at this site where something happened, get back in the bus, go to the next one. No, this is going to be immersion. This is going to be an immersion. So,
yeah, I will say I will recommend everybody to get in early. You don't want to, be left behind. No pun intended over there with the funky eschatological novels, but and the funky Christian films. But the idea is for you to get in early. We haven't even started promoting this the way we are going to, so things are going to get filled. Space is going to get filled up pretty quickly. We want to make sure that we get a good quality group of people and that share this passion. It is amazing to be able to find. We always look around in our congregations and we see, unless this is a DCW focused congregation, when we start talking about this, they see us like we have four heads or something. We start talking about these topics. Here, you're going to be in the company of people who are like-minded and they understand these concepts. And I think what Mike just said is very, very real. You build some relationships. I remember going to Israel and rooming with some people and walking through these places and having these experiences, this awe, this shock, kind of moments where it gets solidified in your mind and those relationships become lifelong friendships. I think that this is a great opportunity. And then again, you're going to be able to truly immerse yourself into the DCW and walk where Paul walked.
And I will just one other little bit of information. It is fully refundable up to 100 days before the departure date. So
wow.
if you go in and you have to, something happens and you have to break, or you're safe in that respect. Now, obviously, we don't have anything to do with your airfare. And right now, airfare to Athens is very inexpensive. It's around $700 for an economy ticket. So that's really good. That's round trip. So, and that's multiple airlines, several, 4 or 5, I think. So that right now is a sweet spot time to book this and get your travel insurance, get your flights, and then you're covered. I really encourage you to, if you're going to go, make the deposit, get your travel insurance, get your flight. Now, there is I will say this, there is an in-country flight. We end in Thessaloniki, we fly back to Athens, but we are also going to have an optional bus drive back to Athens for those that might have later flights. So it's a 4.5, 5 hour drive from Thessaloniki back to Athens, or it's a 30-minute flight on a Aegean Air from Thessaloniki to Athens, and then your round trip from Athens takes place there. So just so you know, you're going to have to do a little bit of homework on your travel, and there's a lot of great sites out there to help you with that. What I do recommend looking into some of the travel credit cards that give you some mileage up front. It could actually pay for at least one of your round trip tickets to get back and forth from Athens. And then you gain all the points from paying for that trip on that card, and it'll pay you back in the ability to use those points even in partner, and it's non-airline specific, so things like that. So I think Capital One has one. American Express gets pretty much specific on an airline or a particular benefit point. So just look into that and do some homework. There's ways to mitigate the airfare costs and so forth. So I really highly recommend you do that.
Awesome. Final words for this live stream, Ron?
I'm done. Can't wait.
All right. Well, let's do it.
Go study.
I know everybody's excited, and thank you, Mike, for this. Thank you for putting it together. Ron, thank you for saying yes to this great opportunity. And Lord willing, we get to walk in the footsteps of Paul and see things like he saw things through the framework of the DCW. Mike, thank you for your time. Ron, thank you for your
Thank you, Jorge.
time. And everybody on the other side, thank you for still supporting us. Remember that the best way to support us is through, you can go to the DRMSH, to the Michael Heiser Foundation, michaelisheiser.com. You can go to the drmsh.com, and all the links are there. You can also, again, go to drmsh.com, sign up for the community. Dr. Ron has some exclusive content in there. He does, how often, Ron, do you do the live streams in there?
Twice a month.
Twice a month.
We have Q&As. Yeah, with the daily dose.
The daily dose of Bible. So you do daily dose of Bible. So we have a ton of videos on the daily dose of Bible there at the RMSH community. Ron does 2 Q&As per month and a ton of exclusive content in there. So thank you guys for being here. Make sure you share this live stream with anybody that might be interested in being part of this amazing tour. Thank Mike and Ron for being here. And with that being said, thank you and God bless. We see you guys soon because we have more live streams coming with amazing news to come. God bless.